The heads of the FBI, CIA, and NSA have some strong words for Huawei and ZTE, strongly implying the Chinese government uses their devices to spy on Americans, even though there's no hard evidence. Huawei is the second largest phone maker in the world. Though the company has denied the allegations, it needs to do more to convince Americans its phones can and should be trusted. At this time, there isn't much in the way of hard evidence to back up any claims that Huawei phones are a threat to personal or national security. It's mostly just a lot of smoke from Washington. There was a report in 2016 that a private software company based in China did include software on some third-party phones that sent a user's text messages to a Chinese server every 72 hours. That's pretty shady, but as far as anyone knows, Huawei and ZTE phones never had the software, and it was never intended for phones sold in the US. Ironically, the only known hacking that we know that's related to Huawei wasn't done by the Chinese government, it was done by the NSA. In 2012, the NSA made a program called ShotGiant. ShotGiant created backdoors in Huawei networking equipment to monitor communications around the world and find ties between Huawei and the China's People's Liberation Army. But like the new allegations, there was no evidence that Huawei had done any wrongdoing. But the NSA still doesn't trust Huawei. Just imagine if any other government said this. For example, imagine if the Chinese government accused Apple's iPhones of spying on its citizens, even though there's no evidence to suggest so. It then bans iPhones and labels Apple as untrustworthy because it could be working with, say, the NSA to monitor Chinese communication. Would that be fair? Of course not. So what can Huawei do to address these worries, assuming it's not really in cahoots with the Chinese government? The answer is transparency. Yes, it sucks that Huawei is getting dragged around, but if it wants to prove its innocence, it'll need to show extensively how its devices aren't eavesdropping on its users. It's not quite the same situation, but it might be good for Huawei to borrow a move from the Samsung playbook from when their Galaxy Note 7 phones exploded back in 2016. Following the Note 7's unfortunate launch, Samsung conducted its own investigation and hired electrical experts from outside firms for unbiased perspectives. Samsung then shared these detailed findings at a press conference streamed worldwide for consumers to watch. And if that wasn't enough, Samsung invited a few tech reporters, including me, to visit its battery factories in South Korea to further learn about its findings and the measures it had implemented to ensure such a situation would never happen again. Huawei needs its own Note 7 redemption moment. Huawei could hire third-party researchers to look into its software code to ensure there's no backdoor sending data to China, and then disclose that information to consumers, carriers, and US intelligence agencies. So, Huawei, my advice to you, show, don't tell. Show people your phones are safe to use. Extreme transparency and honesty go a long way and will pay off down the road.